Okay, I think it's ready. Good morning. Good morning. Before I say anything else, I just want to first thank the choir for that song. And I want to give a special shout out to the band that played the worship, the instrument players, the singers. I think it's important to recognize them and to recognize what the Spirit is doing in their lives. It's a pleasure to be speaking to you again today. I have to say, the more that I do this, it doesn't get any easier. Yeah. Especially today because I'm doing a bit of an experiment. Pastor Jicky taught me how to script my sermons, to write out everything I'm going to say and deliver it as written. I don't have any papers in front of me today. I just have the help of my slides. So today I'm copying Kuya Lu. So we'll see what happens. It's a bit of an experiment. Let's start with something a little bit lighthearted. So one day, a clever, smart-aleck seminarian thought he accomplished something clever. On a final exam that asked him to delve into the complexities of theology, he wrote, "Only God knows the answers to these questions." Grading the paper, the professor said, "Nice proposition. If true, God gets 100. You get a 0. We're going to be talking today about what it means to give an answer to questions about faith. I've titled the sermon, "Why I Am a Christian," and the subtitle is "Building a Case for Christianity." The reason that I chose this title is because of a famous talk given by the famous philosopher Bertrand Russell in 1927. He gave a talk in London titled, "Why I Am Not a Christian." So all I've done is deleted the "not." Haha, very clever of me. And I did that because I want to give this subject a kind of historical and a kind of intellectual seriousness that I think this subject needs to have. So that's all I'll say by way of introduction. Some of you know that last summer I did a teaching internship, and in that internship, one of the most important things that I learned is that every good teacher has clear expectations. They make the objectives of the lesson clear. So instead of waiting till the end of the sermon to give you what you should take away, I'm going to give them to you now. So this is a time to take out your phones, take a picture, take a selfie, whatever. And I used some acronyms, CMWBAT, which stands for Church Members Will Be Able To. So if you're listening, the first objective is church members will be able to summarize 1 Peter 3:15 by accurately paraphrasing some translations with reference to key words. So that's going to be our text today, and I really want everyone to take away some of the key words. Next, church members will be able to describe how to justify Christian faith by differentiating between a testimony and an argument. And I'm going to argue later that these are the two answers that we basically have, and we're going to think about them a little bit. Next, church members will be able to prepare to respond to various types of unbelievers by imagining themselves, excuse me, I'm recovering from a cold. By imagining themselves in tense situations. So we're going to imagine what we would say in certain situations, how we would respond to certain questions in order to prepare for when we do encounter those questions. And lastly, church members will be able to build a compelling and rational case for their faith by thinking further about why Christianity is their worldview. A worldview is exactly what the word says it is. It's the way that you look at the world, the way you view the world. As a Christian, we look at the world differently than, say, an atheist, than a Muslim. And so it's important to know why, in particular, we've chosen Christianity as our worldview. All right, now that we have the objectives, I want to lay out my approach a little bit. My approach will consist of close readings of biblical text, mostly 1 Peter 3:15, theological and philosophical perspectives. Now, I wanted to include a lot of these, but I'm going to limit myself this morning to two key thinkers that I think are very important. And lastly, some personal experiences and observations. This sermon will not tell my life story. I know that the title might be misleading, but I'm not going to be delivering my testimony this morning. And I'm not going to try to cover the entire range of justifications of Christianity. That will take a lifetime. I don't have that time this morning. Okay, so now that we have that on the table, let's look at our texts. Feel free to read along with me if you want to. I won't make you. First, we have the New International Version of 1 Peter 3:15. But in your hearts revere Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to anyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect. All right, next we have the King James Version. But sanctify the Lord God in your hearts, and be ready always to give an answer to every man that asketh you a reason of the hope that is in you with meekness and fear. Third, the New Living Translation. Instead, you must worship Christ as Lord of your life. And if someone asks you about your hope as a believer, always be ready to explain it, but do this in a gentle and respectful way. Lastly, the Message translation. Through thick and thin, keep your hearts at attention in adoration before Christ, your Master. Be ready to speak up and tell anyone who asks why you're living the way you are, and always with the utmost courtesy. So these are our 4 translations today. From this point on, key points are in bold and subpoints are bulleted. First key point for these texts: before we even think about building a case for Christianity or recording our testimonies,